Thanks a lot. Yeah, thanks for the introduction. I want to thank Voigt for having us, and it's really nice to see these community-inspired events. We're a small company; we don't do too much in-the-face marketing, so this kind of stuff is really the grassroots that gets us motivated and inspired. So it's nice to see, and thanks a lot. So tonight, I'm going to go through some new stuff in 99. Last Friday, we just released the first very experimental but first build of 99 beta, and it's going to be definitely for people that have already used Touch because it's new features. So I hope if you like something, you cheer, and if you thought it should have been in 5 years ago, you say finally or something. But and also it's informal. So if you have a question or if you want to know a little bit more about it, just put your hand up or ask me at that time. So yeah, I'm going to just get started. So right now the beta, we don't have it out for non-commercial users because it is pretty experimental, and we don't want a whole bunch of new users coming in and having a bad experience with bugs and not understanding that. We really do plan on getting this out to non-commercial users in the next month or two, so it's coming soon. But if you currently have a license, you can get your hands on it. So if you want to find out where it is, it's under downloads and then experimental downloads down here below the official builds, and you can go in here and download it. There's also some notes about it on the forum. If you search for 99, you'll find sort of an announcement that gives you a little bit of caveats and how the update system works. So let's just start it up here. It starts. Do we have a second monitor here? Oh, there it is. Sorry. Okay, so first of all, there's a couple of just small things. These aren't going to blow your mind, but they're really annoying for some users. Mary touched on it actually, is DPI scaling for Windows. If any of you have like a Retina monitor or a high resolution monitor and you're looking at the Touch UI, it's very small. So a lot of people have been dropping their resolution down to 1920 by 1080. Now in the Windows version, it's smart enough to use this display settings in Windows right here. So if you have a super high-res monitor, you can put this up to maybe 150 and you'll get a different, you have to log out and sign in, but you'll get a different size UI. So along with that, why is this empty? Okay. Along with that, the window component also has a DPI scaling option. So on those monitors, like let me just drop in a movie here. And, so right here, if I have it at native, it's going to give you actually pixel perfect access to your monitor, so you can get all 4Ks of pixels if you want. If you're using DPI scaling, it's going to use that setting that you've set in Windows. So maybe if you're making a UI, you don't want it to show up super tiny or something, you can use that DPI scaling. So those are the two places that'll be found. I think this is just a normal monitor, so it's not going to make a difference. But let's try 150. Yeah, it does. There you go, a 1/50th bigger. So okay. All right. Another thing that is just a usability thing that people have been asking for years is we use incremented files for whenever you save stuff, just to keep sort of a backup running as you go. You can always go back to something if you screw something up. But what it does is in your project folder you get all these files and files and files, and it gets a little crazy. So for example, I'll just save this again. Save. Now it's 2. Now if I go into preferences, the first option now is being able to put this into a backup folder. Alright, so now if you save it, it's going to create a backup folder and put those numbered ones in there. So just a little bit of maintenance and something that no one's going to find because no one reads the release notes. Okay. So what else do we have? Well, one that a lot of people have been asking for a while, and it's pretty exciting, is a web render top. We have a bunch of tops. Let's just see.
That
So
one showed up for a little while and then disappeared, right? There was a Chrome.
this is actually using the Chromium SDK. It's the same thing. Chromium changes quite often, so we had to back out of that and redo it. There's no interaction on it yet. Some people are already trying to hack JavaScript in the forum to get interaction, but it does stream in. Like if you go to YouTube, for example. Oops. It will play video at this maximum rendered frame rate. So it works pretty good. I want to see what people are going to do with this. So. Give me a site. Let's try. .com. So the only thing I can't do is I can't select anything because I can't click on it yet. Something's loading. Close. Close. I'll report a bug right now.
See if we were a new
Okay, so we've also added some color correction to tops. This top is in the last build of 88, but it's so new I'll talk about it. It's the OpenColor.io SDK, which allows for some basically you can use 3D lookup tables for color space transforms and color correction. There's some gory details in here that we've had some people requesting this and helping us build it, and I haven't used it yet, but it's there for color correctors if you need that.
Is there any kind of texture size maximum on
it? No, I don't. No, there wouldn't be. We also have added a new pixel format called sRGB 8-bit fixed, and what that does is it's still only 8-bit, but it compresses, or it uses more of the bits at the bottom for the darker colors. So you can, if you have a lot of low light colors or low light scenes where you're getting gradients, you can use this, or if you can have your whole chain in sRGB. So yeah, it's kind of nice. So something that we've had for a while is the spout in and out top, but there's a little bit of news since we have a Mac version now. This is now called the siphon spout top. So if you're a Mac user, you get siphon instead of spout because it's a shared memory thing. And what we did, we designed the top so that if you're opening it on Mac, it's going to use siphon. If you're opening on Windows, it's going to use spout, and it uses the same parameters, so you don't have to have two different tops, and it's just going to work. So I mean, it's not too exciting when you're doing it in the same file, but I could just open this on the Mac and it'll work the same way. So no news there, but and actually Siphon has more on the Mac side. Siphon has been updated to work with the latest version of OS 10 now, or Mac OS, because it was we needed to get that updated by Tom Butterworth to program that stuff. So for those of you using SDI equipment, the video device in has a whole bunch of new native SDKs. We have added stuff for Point Grey, which isn't SDI, but that's these are really great cameras out of Vancouver, Canada, for motion tracking and infrared cameras. They have just about every camera you could think of. And then Bluefish and Aja have some really nice SDI solutions. So The Bluefish stuff we've used on a couple projects, and it's really low latency, like noticeably better than the Blackmagic. So, like, highly recommended. Little pricey, but you get what you pay for there. I think it's pretty nice.
Are you guys limiting GPU direct, or is it just GPU directs that skip the CPU frame pass thing?
You would have to ask Malcolm that because he programs that.
So, I just didn't know if you did the new ones. I know there was no speed game on with Blackmagic with GPU direct. It was like another latency game.
Right.
But I'm curious if that was new.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we're doing that because if it's NVIDIA only, we probably didn't because we're kind of covering all our bases right now. So yeah. But it is faster than the Blackmagic.
You played or tested with
NDI? No, I don't think we've used that too much. No. But is that is that for SDI stuff or?
It seems to be some new.
Oh, sorry, I know what you're talking about. I thought you were talking about the hardware. Yeah, so we've looked at that, but we don't have anything integrated yet. But it's pretty interesting, yeah, for sure. It lets you fly stuff down Cat 6 and.
We have 10
yeah. Yeah, we're quite interested in supporting it. We haven't really found a use for it yet. But, I mean, found a need for it yet, but we'd like to.
Does the Point Grey implementation support their stereoscopic cameras, or only their standard?
Are you talking about their Ladybug cameras that have the 360? That's a
no, not those. They have ones that are they have stereoscopic ones that'll produce a depth image based on the stereoscopic.
So it really depends which SDK the cameras are supporting. There's two. There's the Spinnaker, which is the new one, and I think the Spinnaker has stereoscopic, and the Flycapture 2 is older. So if you go to Point Grey, and you can see there. Whoops. Their cameras here, like you look under FlyS, yeah, and just see which SDK they're using. But
yeah, that was what happened. If you mess over cameras and then go over to stereo vision, the Bumblebee and then Tripod, it looks like it has a different SDK.
Yeah. We'd be interested in supporting that if you have a need for it. Yeah. We finally got in contact with these guys after many years, so they're sending us cameras to test now, and we send them back, and so we can test these things out. If you guys have a camera model you're interested in checking out, we can get a camera in short order now. So we'd like to hear what you need. Also for streaming, we have a few new things in the video device in has been modified by Malcolm to video stream in. Sorry. It has some better options for high bandwidth H.264. It's actually he just more parameters to do that. Right, max decode CPUs has been added to this, which is something we used to have in the, or we still do have in the movie Intop. So you can get more CPUs decoding your H.264 when it comes in. The other thing that's interesting is the touch out top. I don't know how many people use the touch out, but you can send video from one touch process to another or on another computer. This can now connect to multiple clients, so that can be handy. It used to only do one client, and you'd have to have a whole bunch of touch outs. So now you can do this to multiple machines and multiple processes.
And you can send to a Mac as well?
Pardon me?
Can you send to a Mac computer as well, to Apple? Over the network?
Technically, you should be able to, yes. I have not tested that yet. But the other thing is we added HapQ in 88, but now we also do HapQ Alpha. So if you need an alpha format, you can get that across. Okay, another favorite top from everybody is the noise top, right? Noise top now has a second input. This allows you to supply custom noise coordinates for this top. So instead of using like a noise top and then a lookup or something like that, you can just plug in, let's use a ramp for example. Oops. And it's using this input for the noise coordinates of this function. So let me just take this. Now it only works for the Perlin and the Simplex GPU functions, but unless you're on an Intel machine, those are the ones you're probably using anyway because they're so much faster than the other CPU-based ones. So, so yeah, it just saves you some nodes, and it's a lot faster than doing a lookup. The math top got some love as well. The math top now has a multi-add page like the chop and the famous range page. So you can just rearrange your stuff easily here. We love the math chop so much that we were like, why doesn't the top have the same parameters? So yeah. So I don't know this operation. And it's a couple. Yeah, those are from before. I don't have any shaders ready for this because I haven't done them, but maybe Vincent will by the next touch-in. But the GLSL top now can do compute shaders. So Malcolm's been playing around with that, and it looks promising. So I don't have an example for that, unfortunately. But okay, let's move on to chops. There's a few noteworthy items in chops. We have a new chop called the splice chop. We found like in the last 5 years people have started using chops in much different ways because of LEDs and how people are accessing so many channels and so many numbers of chops. A lot of the time you're trying to surgically splice a certain value of samples into a channel, and before you'd have to do 2 trims and then join and a whole bunch of chops just to get like a little bit of individual control. So we have a splice chop that kind of helps with that, and it kind of goes hand in hand with the new the pattern chop, which was new in the last year. The pattern chop kind of replaces what the wave chop used to do, and it's more designed for these situations where you want to specify exact number of samples and you want to control cycling. And so like if you're using the wave chop, that's fine, but everyone's sort of, well, we're moving on to the pattern chop and using this a lot more. So you can set, like, let's say you need 512 for your DMX universe. You have 512 samples there. So now what the splice chop can do is, I'll just make another one here. I'll make this one just sine waves just so you can see what's happening here. The splice chop will allow you to just insert anything, kind of like an old tape splice. I'll make this short. Okay, so what's happening here? Sorry, ramp. There we go. So in the splice chop, you have a start point. A start point is basically where this second input is going to be spliced in. So it's in samples right now. If I want to put it, let's just put it at the 100th sample. So I'm now splicing in this ramp exactly at the 100th sample. All right.
It's a replacement, or it's a...
And that's there's a few options in the trim method. Right now, if you look at the length has been extended. So we have 512 and 50 is 562. But if you say trim to insert, you're actually going to trim out those samples as well. So you're going to keep the same length.
But it's only trimming out the ones you're replacing, or it's not
Yeah.
shifting them?
In this case. Now, if I use trim length, you can trim an arbitrary number of samples out of the original. So let's say we want to trim like 200 samples out of the original, and then insert at the 100th. It's going to be shorter.
How different is it? The whole start address thing, like if you're taking a certain type of LED fixture and moving it around inside your universe and trying to figure out a start channel. Traditionally, I would use a replace chop. How different is this from replace? I feel like
Use a replace to replace samples though?
like I have a 512 channel list already that exists for our net,
Yeah.
and then I just replace, say.
Okay, so you're working on channels in that case. This is for samples. So you're actually replacing channels. So it's a similar idea, but yeah, I know what you're saying. This is just for sample manipulation. So yeah, if you want to keep your 512 length, you would use the trim to insert length. And you can see wherever I put that little insert is going to be 0 or 1, I guess. This is 1, sorry. There's also a way of in the insert method, you can change this to trim to insert length. And you can set a different length. So let's say I want, because this is going to be not a sine, but it's going to be a square wave. But I want this square wave to take up, I don't know, 40 samples. That's not a good example. 400 samples. It will take up 400 of those samples with this input. Trim to insert length. You can also stretch it, so if you don't want it to repeat and cycle, which a lot of chops will do when they run out of time, it's like an extend condition, you can stretch it, so now that input is going to be stretched to your trim or insert length. So all these things really let you kind of plug in stuff. So. Okay, and since we're talking about LEDs and stuff like that, let's look at the DMX out chop. Maybe this will help you with your ArtNet problems. But we now have SACN, which is another format. It's kind of like it's coming up after ArtNet. And we also have multicast on that. So people that are sending 40,000 channels of DMX will be happy with this. Very similar addressing as ArtNet, but a lot of new devices are coming out as SACN. So, and it doesn't seem to choke on network issues like ArtNet sometimes floods the network and chokes a bit. It has a better performance for sure. Let's look at SOPs. There's not too much news in SOPs, but there's a few things. Sorry, that's not the SOP I wanted. So if you like your torus so much that you want it as an FBX file, you can right-click it, select FBX, and export it basic. As long as it's a polygon or NURB, apparently. So let's change that to a polygon. We can also read in basic OBJ files. OBJ file format is a bit of a Wild West, so basic OBJs will work. But your mileage may vary. Okay, components, we have some interesting stuff in components. First and foremost, well, let's just, I'll actually just get something from over here. Image filters. Let's go. So, if you spent months making this amazing radial blur and it's all your proprietary algorithm and you want to share it with people but you don't want your IP kind of taken, or maybe you want to start selling it, we now have added component privacy to every component. It's a pro-only feature at this point, but you can basically add a password to this. And enable privacy. So now you can't go in it. You can't use scripts to access inside it. It becomes a true black box. You can connect inputs and outputs, so you can still have it functioning like this, and use custom parameters to, you know, give people access to its controls. But we hear the community wants to be able to sell things that they make. They want to be able to lock up some stuff and make a business model out of this. So we're trying to figure out how to do that, and this is the first step. We don't know how that will work with licensing and keeping people from just handing it out, but at least if you've worked on something that you want to kind of keep to yourself, you can. People can't just copy and paste your code out. So we hope this people are excited about this. Now, when it's locked, you can access it. You don't need Pro to access it. Anyone with a password can access it. If I can remember my password. And this is a temporary access, so it'll be. I can get inside it again for the rest of this session. If I reload, it'll automatically be relocked, just in case you forget to lock it again. And if you want to restore the privacy now to do a test to make sure it's locked, you can restore it. Or if you want to remove the privacy completely and get rid of it, you just have to type in your password one more time just to make sure. So now it's gone. So I don't know. We hope people enjoy that.
So you don't need Pro to use a lock?
Pardon me?
You don't need a Pro license to use a lock command?
No, you can access it. You can just to set the lock originally. It's a Pro feature. Yeah.
And also
Yeah.
to remove it,
I think removal would also be an author of Pro. Yeah, yeah. But if you had someone working on it and they had a commercial license or something, they could access it to go like a team member or something. It's the same as our TOE file privacy is also a Pro feature. So. Something with the replicator. Let's just look at a replicator. This is a small thing, but it's drove us mad for a while. Does everyone know how the replicator works? I mean, you showed it, but basically, if you have a table, let's just say folder, template table, and I'll make a circle for all of these. So you can see I made a circle for each one of these rows in the table. 6 rows, I guess. Yeah. The problem is if you have a whole bunch of things here, you'll get a huge pause or stop in your Touch Designer process. Like if you a whole bunch of people add a whole bunch of media to your folder and you're creating stuff, it will freeze your whole system for a while. So there's something called incremental update now, and this is basically for each frame how many replicants it will make. So you can spread it out over the course. Like if you can only manage 1 per frame, that's fine. It'll just go through them and kind of create. Now I'm wondering if I can pause this and do that. Yeah. So each frame is going to create another one. So just a little performance thing, because the replicators have also got in the way of good performance in some projects. So there's another new component also in 3D objects for environment lighting. It's just a new light type, and I'll get into that soon when I show you some more rendering stuff. But it's a component, so here we are. There's also some updates to Python. 99 is now using Python 3.5. So for any OpenCV users out there, that allows you to get all your stuff into Touch Designer. We have a whole bunch of additions to Python that I don't want to bore you with right now, but that's the kind of stuff you want to read the release notes for, a bunch of members and stuff like that. We've also updated GLSL on Windows, so you can do GLSL 4.4 and 4.5. And all of our shaders our old shaders, a lot of the tops were done in 1.2, and now they're all GLSL 3.3, and that doesn't really mean much for most people, but it allows us to be cross-platform, and basically up to date. So, what else do I want to show you before? Some people were talking about chop export conflicts. So that's received a little bit of attention too. So let's say we do a little example with that. Constant null speed in here. And let's say it's exporting to hold on a second here. Transform. Hold on a second. Okay, so a lot of the time if we had something like this and you would take, let's say you'd copy and paste this for some reason, you used to get export conflicts all the time. So what we've done now is, for those who don't know where export data is held, it's held in this little docked DAT, and this is basically a path of where this channel is going. Channel 1 is going to transfer 1tx parameter. And we brought back the enable column, and now we manage this enable column. So if you look at the copied one here, actually this is turned off. This export flag is turned off. The copies and paste used to, oh, sorry, it's not my computer, sorry. The copies and paste used to cause a chop export conflict that would kind of break systems if you had a whole bunch of channels going at the same time. Now you can kind of jump back and forth between them. So for people that had a lot of those problems, I'd really recommend trying to play with it again and see if you still have those problems. There's about 5 or 6 things that we fixed and changed how that worked. And you can also go in and you see how this is now set to 0 when I'm using these flags. You can go in and inspect why it's working or why it's not working. So just kind of learn that. A bunch of our SDKs were updated as well. Blackmagic, RealSense, Oculus, all those are up to date with the latest that are available. And the RealSense, I don't know how many people are using RealSense cameras, but that last camera they released, the SR300, is supported in this version, as well as some more color images. So for those people that are using that, it's okay. I want to actually shift gears now, though, and show some new rendering, because we've added PBR too, so that's exciting. So I'm going to actually do that on this computer, if you just give me a second. Where's the HDMI for this?
Regular HDMI?
Yeah, regular. No, slack. Just enough.
Can we also do the capture?
Sure, if it'll. Yeah. Wait, I'm not getting this screen here.
You don't want there.
Okay.
Fairly standard function.
Bring down the Mac. Whoa.
Let's see if we're getting anything here quick.
So I'm just. You come through?
Yeah, it looks like it's good.
So I'm doing this just because I have my files on this, and because it's working. So this is actually an example that's on the forum. So it's you can get it right now. Huh. That warning still works. Actually, no, this is not the right one. Sorry. So the Mac version is pretty useful. It's pretty up to speed. There is a known issues list. There's some things it can't do yet, and there's a few operators that aren't ready. Go to the forum. This is the example I'm grabbing, PBR substance sphere. This was basically a bunch of texture maps created in Substance Designer and then brought in and using our PBR material and rendering. And just if anyone has a Mac and they're wondering what works and what doesn't work, I think actually, no, sorry, it's under bugs. There's a Mac beta known issues list. There's a few operators that haven't been finished, and well, known issues, let's just say that. But there's not going to be a Connect and DirectX, for example. So, that's why I didn't use this build. Okay, hold on a second.
You guys expanded your staff to support an additional device?
We do have another programmer, so we have 4 programmers now, and a co-op student, so 4.5, 5. And we also, with this port, the port has been in the works for quite a while, but we also had Tom Butterworth helping us on a lot of the port for the last 2 years, so he's done a lot of the back-end stuff, and that's been instrumental. So, yeah.
Is the plan to always keep the Windows and the Mac version sort of up to speed in the same time, or are you preferring Windows?
No, actually, we've designed the whole thing so it's the same code base. Like, it is running off the same code base. They get compiled and built at the same time every day. So that's what we're aiming for. It's required some reworking of the Windows side, obviously, and there's going to be some features that the Mac can't do, NVIDIA specific features or something like that. But that's what we're targeting. We don't want it to be weird or breaking stuff. And now, all the operators that aren't in the Mac version, for example, if I open something here, I can still create them and lay them down and set the parameters. So as a designer, if you know what you're doing, you can still make your networks. You can do everything. They're just not going to cook. So we didn't want to lock people out like that. So I'll just. This was obviously created on a workstation and not a 4-year-old laptop. So I'm going to go to the environment light and turn down the map quality down a little bit. Like if I cranked it up to 1, it looks beautiful, but my machine is going to die here. So okay. So there's basically two new operators that are doing most of the work here. Is the environment map, or the environment light component, which is this guy here. It's taking a map in, which is is a cube map down here, rendered from this chain down here. So it just takes a typical vertical cross cube map. We're looking at other cube map or other map options for that as well. And then you have just rotate and map quality. There's not too many feature settings for this. They're not, hasn't been built out yet. Now PBR, it's very much like the Phong. It has the same basic parts, but all the maps have moved over to the maps page. And you'll see that we have a bunch of new PBR-based maps, even ambient occlusion. That just got added last week, actually. And this is where you can take your maps that are output from whatever PBR authoring solution you're using, or whatever you might be using, even Photoshop, and you just use them here. Now, okay, so what I want to show you guys today is actually, we have a secret. It's not out yet. It's going to be out next week, but there's actually this new parameter here, substance top. So for anyone that knows Substance Designer, which is this application here, it's also a node-based application just for making materials. Come on, internet. We're now supporting these materials directly. They have an SBSAR file format, which you can export from Substance Designer here. And you can drop them into the PBR mats, and it will load those things automatically. So we fought about this for a while internally. It's like, how do we create a nice array of materials that everyone can get started with? And we don't have the manpower to make a whole bunch of content like that. We hope that this allows people to do that. There's also a sharing community here where you can download a whole bunch of free pre-made materials, or you can buy them from their store. We hope this gets people some nice, beautiful renderings a lot more quickly than having to build their own shaders. So I'm just going to show you how this works. If we, I'll get rid of these maps, so I don't need them now. And for Substance Top, there's a new top called Substance. So I can go grab any of these new materials. Let's say this tiles, for example. Now it's requiring that I just drop this in. Now it's automatically going to match up whatever maps are included in this material. This Substance Top right now is currently showing all the maps that are included in that material. This is just a preview in the viewer. If you want to inspect any of the individual maps that are there, you can just look at them in their glory. So this is a quick way of just getting it all set up easily. There's also, beside this Substance Top, there is a Substance Select. And this will let you pull out any of those individual maps. Like, let's say I want to take the normal map, and then I want to do some post-processing on that. I can then do whatever I normally do with top filters, and then go back to the PBR and put it back in normal map, for example. Alright, so you can grab them out like that. Now, the interesting thing about the Substance Top is that most of the materials created in Substance Designer are procedural parametric materials. So they have a whole bunch of controls that the author in Substance has added. Those are now being brought in the Substance Top as custom parameters. So these are instantly available to, let's say the tiles, for example, how many tiles we want, the color. We're working on this right now. These are just floats, but eventually, like for color parameters, we'll have our color pickers down there and improve that a little bit. So let's try a more interesting one here. Setup. This one wasn't that great. This is an example. So most of these have an output size, and at first I was like, what does this even mean? This 8, it's not 8 pixels, it's 2 to the power of 8. So by default, they're coming in at 256. But if you want higher res stuff, let's take it to 1024 by 1024. You can see those textures are recalculated in the SDK, so they're now nice and high, and you get a little bit better resolution. Now, these aren't going to be parameters that you're going to be able to drive in real time at this point, because they are recalculating those textures, and that Substance SDK is, we're at the, that's the limitation that we found. So you won't be able to really control these in real time unless your computer's super powerful.
But you could still like script the parameter change and then compare where it's displaying like that.
Yeah, and if you're, yeah, it's going to take time and maybe pause that timeline. You know what I mean? So it depends if you do it. You could probably figure out a way to do it elegantly, but so this one's more interesting. It has some actual more like some depth to it. There's a height range. There's ambient. There's the scratches. Let's again, as soon as you turn this up a little bit, 256 by 256 is limiting, but you can see these. How much rust there is, you can get rid of the rust. You get all the features that were in that material, so it's pretty nice.
If you're using Substance to drop another map on your material, does that override that map from the Substance top?
Yeah, that's right. So let's say this PBR here is using the normal map from this Substance top, but if I were to, well, I'll just use the math top. You should see those bumps. Yeah.
Would it be possible to kind of create a bunch of those Substance tops and sort of switching over time to like launch it to get rescued?
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely. You could load this in multiple times and have different settings, or you could, maybe it makes more sense to then pull out the textures and filter them in tops and do blending. So you could blend between textures there. And originally, like the current version that's posted, it doesn't have this one parameter there. It just has all these guys. It wasn't ready last week, but we'll probably post this sometime next week so people can start playing and feeding back to us. So we really hope that kind of kills a couple birds with one stone, basically getting a lot of materials out to people and improving the rendering substantially. So, any questions about this stuff? Yep. On Mac? Multiple GPUs? Well, usually when you're using multiple GPUs in Windows, you need to do something called GPU affinity and run separate TOE files, separate processes. And when you start that process, you bind it to the GPU. You can, if you have a mega computer, just start them up. But what's going to happen then? Both GPUs will do the work of both files, and so you're not gaining anything by having a second GPU. So there's if I go to the wiki. Sorry, I just couldn't hear you.
Is there a way to pick which one to use?
Yes. So I'll just find GPU affinity.
Is that a NVIDIA Quadro specific feature?
There is a way of doing affinity on AMD, but it doesn't work on GeForce. GeForce and multiple cards don't really go too well together. Here's Quadros and GPU affinity. And actually, Malcolm did just add something for GPU affinity that makes it easier to access. Because Windows sometimes enumerates those GPUs differently depending on how it starts up, because it's Windows. I think it can be now specified using the monitor index. So zero will always be the first one on the left. And that was a new driver change actually. So your NVIDIA drivers need to be updated. No.
Do you guys have any sense of how with the Mac Pro crash cams it's handling the multiple GPUs on the Mac version?
I don't have a good sense of that, no. I don't know yet. Unfortunately, those GPUs are a little out of date already. So, yeah. I'm waiting for a new MacBook Pro because this thing is 4 years old and it only has 1 gig of RAM, so things are limiting. But we hope it really brings a lot of new users into the community and exposes it to people that don't have a Windows and won't try it without it, because there's great artists and designers out there that we'd love them to try it. So, if you're doing a big projection mapping and a huge you're probably going to need a custom machine anyway. So at that point, someone will buy a Windows box, hopefully.
It said on the site that if you got your license, your commercial license within the last year, that you would need to get an update from Amazon. Is that from when you used the beta or
No, so we've changed the way our licensing works a little bit. Basically, you'll get free updates for any build, any version of Touch Center for a year from when you bought your license. So if you bought it within the last year, you can use it for anything we put out in the next year. So if you bought it last year, you can get 99 and run them both. Yeah.
when you're right on the edge, and then some 99 beta is out now.
Yeah. If you want to get that new build, yeah, you'd need to buy an update. Yeah. We have new pricing on the updates too. We dropped the price of Pro updates substantially, cut it down to $400, and commercials $300. So we hope that helps people turn it over. And I can actually show you a little bit about how the key manager has changed a bit. Now in the key manager, I guess you're going to see all my keys, but that's fine. When you get to this page, it shows you all the keys you have that are disabled and available to you in your entire account. So these ones I can get updates to any of these dates, and because they're white, I can use this, create a key until December 30th, 2017. Down here, you'll see keys that are blacked out, and they will only work on builds that were created up to 2015, October 7th. We're going to also update this to show you which build that is good for. So if you're trying to find out which build you can run on that license, you can just go download it. We just don't have that on the server yet. So.
Can you disable a license? Like the other day, I upgraded Windows and I forgot to disable my license, and I had to contact support and had to disable it for me because I couldn't get back.
Yeah. Yeah, and we know that issue exists. We're discussing how to fix that because we don't have a way of getting into Touch Designer to release that key. So basically, someone can go along and just disable and disable and disable and rekey and rekey and rekey. We've thought about having people sign in every time they start Touch, but in so many cases in Touch Designer, you're off-site, you're doing installations, you don't have internet, so that's not a good solution for a lot of people. Yeah, it's something that we'd like to hear more from the community what they want, but we also have to, not let 1,000 keys for one license. So, yeah. Dongles are also working. If you have a dongle, you can run it on Mac and Windows. Right now, you kind of have to do the flip of the keys. So that's another thing you can do.
So So the thing about the upgrade, the parallel evolution, obviously both Mac OS and Windows are not evolving at the same time.
Mm.
Do you think that could slow down the process of Touch's evolution? Or?
No, we hope not. I mean, we didn't do a Mac port years ago because the OpenGL was so far behind, and now we found it's to a point where we can support the core features. We're not gonna, if something has happened on Windows, like Oculus, for example, we're not gonna say, oh well, it's not for Mac. You know, we're gonna continue to develop as fast as we can. So, another thing about the updates is we found in the past having big version changes was difficult for taking a project forward. If you have like something in 77 and you had to get it running in 88, there were so many changes that it would be very difficult to just start that. So we hope we can continue developing now just in a continuous fashion. 99 is an architectural change, yes, because there's a new version, but we want to just keep going like steady forward now. So we hope that it smooths that ability of bringing projects up to the latest build. So it's been a problem in the past. So, yeah.
Because of the new code base being essentially cross-platform, has there been any consideration of Linux code, or are there certain limitations?
It was the first question on the forum when we posted the Mac build. So yeah, it's basically demand though. We really listen to our customers. There is a number of people that want it, but we kind of, you know, it's demand based. If a whole bunch of people want it and say, yeah, I'm gonna now deploy it to 100 computers, then it makes sense for us. But it's a lot of work. This port took about 2.5 years, not full time, but part time. So.
If someone comes saying they're going to buy 100 kilobytes,
Well, I mean, it's yeah, we understand that is a want, yeah. So maybe it's easier now that we've done it once, but I don't want to put words in the programmer's hands. So it's not. I don't have to do the port, so yeah.
The substance is pretty cool. Is there any thoughts about bringing into maybe?
It's been discussed, but right now our SOPs are the next thing on the on the horizon to get some reworking. It's that needs to be entirely reworked. The way we are basically our geo primitive sort of definition needs to change. It hasn't been updated since Houdini 4.1, which no one remembers. So with this rendering and the next few things we want to add to Touch Designer, there's going to be a little focus on 3D for a while because we know that some of that's fallen behind. There's GPU techniques we can leverage now, and so we know where it stands for sure. Even the geometry viewer as a piece of interface is outdated and hard to use. You always had it up. I'm like, this guy's great.
I got used to it.
Yeah, you get used to it, but it's difficult, right? So that is definitely something we're going to focus on. That's part of it. That we need dynamics. Like VR came out of nowhere a few years ago, and Touch was positioned very well for it. But now, when you're in these worlds, you need to interact. You need to have some sort of physical interaction with these things. So dynamics and some rigid body stuff at least to start with is something that is on our short list. So yeah.
you think we'd see Vox?
Vox is a specifically Houdini thing, but something like that in our real time sort of world. But we're not going to. We have such a different development style, and we're doing our own thing. So it really depends on how it fits into the other parts. So yeah.
When you build the whole subs in Geo, can you change how C++ stuff? Because I know
Yes.
like when I said,
Yeah.
this is like too old, like I don't want
Yeah.
to.
Yes. No. So I was going to ask you after this what parts of the SDK you wanted open, but yeah, C++ SOP for sure, and that might be actually a gateway while we're working on the SOPs. We've been talking about getting the C++ SOP out soon because that's a quick one, and then it gives us some time to rebuild the SOP engine, and even the DAT. Like people are doing crazy stuff with the script.dat and script stop, and it's Python, so it's a little slow, but if you do a C++ version of that, then you can really do some fun stuff. So those two things, just to have parity across all the operators, would be nice. Yeah. So.
Also on the subject of 3D, destination shaders.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, Malcolm's on that. Yeah. So, yeah. There's not in 99 specifically. No. We did add all those new audio operators about a year and a half ago. We actually had a programmer come in and help us, the guy that did Audio GL. His name's John. I forget his last name now, which is bad. I'm sorry. Anyway, he helped us do all these. We don't have that on the immediate horizon, let's just say. Yeah.
Has there been anything like load and thread costs maybe for animation?
Load, sorry?
Vertex costs.
Yeah, so another thing to kind of tide people over while softs are still slow is we're looking very carefully at Alembic right now. So we can do Alembic caching and particle caching and just bring in streams. We've already done some tests and it looks promising, so we'd like to get that out in short order. Yeah. And then because the rework of the other 3D part is going to take some time, for sure. So, yeah. So we understand that the modeling is a little bit, antiquated, and people want to model and make this stuff in their modeler of choice. So we just want to allow people to bring it into touch more easily at this point. So, yeah. Anything? Yeah.
What's the basic technique behind PBR? But I understand like varies from each point to like 2 plays.
Yeah.
For environment lighting.
Well, we're using it's just a new shader, but it uses the environment map is key. Like you don't get anything without the environment map. Well, you get some stuff, but you don't look good.
Because like very quickly to say, but it's even on the beefy GPU, like at one with like a normal map, you could slow down so
well, the PBR shading will be heavier than Fong for sure, because it's doing a lot more calculation. Like the shader is much more complex, and to be honest, that is something that we're still optimizing. We have these early versions, and it's running in real time, but I'm running at 27 frames a second here on my 4-year-old laptop, and I want it to be 60. So we'll see how far we can get with that. But yeah, you can. I think you can actually spit out the shader like in the Fong. Yeah.
Yeah, it spits in your PBR range.
Yeah.
But it's
So,
kind of a mess.
yeah.
So,
Yeah. I didn't write that shader. So we're trying to actually make it. The shader is open source from Substance Designer, and we're trying to get that pretty close as far as look, as close as we can, because we're kind of hoping people would use that. And if they get something in Substance Designer, we want it to look the same in Touch Designer. So, and if anyone's used the package, it's node-based as well, and it's like they're kind of complementary, and we really kind of enjoy it. So, yeah. But it is going to be a little heavier, so 1080. Anything else? I know we're also, one other thing that we're working on, I know some people care about, is Unicode. We're going to get Unicode in DAT sometime soon, so if anyone cares about that. So. Yeah, it's kind of hard to, like, you can do it right now in Python, but it's, jumping through hoops to get there. So, yeah.
I saw you said it was like a couple months or so, you said, for at least some of the ones would be for like, official like we can use for production.
Yeah, we want to be careful about that. We don't want to say it'll be ready in a month or something, because development can take some interesting turns. But we do want to get non-commercial out in shorter order than that, and, hopefully this year. And I think that'll accelerate it. I don't have too many crashes in it currently right now, but I also wouldn't do a project that had to stay up like 24/7 with it, just because I haven't had that many hours on it. So there's also features we want to include in it that might change the architecture, and doing that after we put out an official is kind of dangerous or counterproductive. So you'll notice that 88 has been in a very it's been getting a new build every month and just bug fixes because it's a production stable version. Now that we have an experimental out, we'll be putting a build out again. We're back to the old cadence of once a week, once every 2 weeks. So there'll be constant updates if you're in the experimental. So you might just post, I have this bug that's crashing, and it'll be fixed in a week. So it's the way we like to do it. So yeah.
Or back to TV, is there any mobile animation implementation in the software that you use, for example?
What kind of animation, sorry?
Like mobile animation, like GI?
Ambient occlusion is as far as we've got so far, which is, I know it's not the same thing, but and we haven't talked about that yet. So yeah. Well, so the ambient occlusion is baked into these. There's going to be a texture down here. It's been baked in Substance Designer for the material. So we don't have ambient occlusion in our lights, so you can bake it in touch. It's coming through the material at this point. So it's not like necessarily a game engine Unreal style, but it's baked into the textures. So yeah. Yeah, well, that hour went fast, but yeah, feel free to ask me more questions after we're handing it over. So, yeah.